Hey everyone, this is Daniel,
And I'm June,
and we are
Korean.
American.
Happy Friday.
Hey Jen, happy Friday.
Hi. I don't know
Um,
why I said that.
it's your happy Friday. Do you want to share why we can record during the
Oh,
days on
I
Friday?
no, I think it's cool that I said Happy Friday because we release on Fridays too.
That's true.
Hmm.
And today is Friday.
Yes.
Well, Jen, it's time
Hmm.
for another news headlines readout.
Mm,
We were going to do this once a month
yeah.
originally. I think it's too frequent, to be honest.
Yeah. For
And
us to
so,
accumulate interesting enough stories. Yeah.
yeah, also because Korean news actually doesn't change that much, it feels.
Does it? I think Korean news is it's very dynamic
Really? What do you mean by that?
because people pile up on certain issues and it becomes a big deal, stuff like that.
Uh huh.
I don't know.
I mean, I was
Maybe
looking
it's
over
because
the last
yeah.
few months of news.
Hmm.
It's all similar. The North Korean trash balloons are still a thing.
The past 2 months has been, yes.
It's all
I agree.
dominated by the hot weather and
Hmm.
implications of that.
Mm.
Seems pretty there hasn't been that many
But wait
different
until
ones.
October.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we did miss a month, but I think moving forward, every 2-3 months will probably be better.
Hmm.
So yeah, this episode, June, let's go over some of the news headlines we found from August and September.
Yes.
Cool. So the first one I wanted to bring up, I can't remember if we touched on this before, but
It's the shortest intro, by the way, ever. We
oh,
just jumped right into the news. No, I think it's good.
okay.
I'm not saying it's a bad
Are you
thing.
saying you want some more small talk, June?
Maybe we
How's your
could.
week?
How's my week? How's my week? As I age, I think my memory loss is pretty severe.
That's for
I
sure.
always
Yeah.
have to go through my
You look
uh,
at your calendar.
my photos,
Oh, your photos.
yeah, to see what I did. Let's see. Oh my God, my week was uninteresting.
I feel like after Chuseok, right? It's common maybe just to have a do nothing week.
Okay, let's move on. Wait, how was yours?
June, my weeks are always the same.
It's always the same.
It's just kids. Yeah.
Let's do
We live very
another.
different lives.
Let's do another beer like chimek
Ah,
outside
we need to do
because the
that.
weather is
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes,
I was
yes,
gonna
yes.
ask you. Mm.
Okay, well, moving in, just diving right in, June.
Mhm.
I can't remember if we touched on this before,
Mhm.
but Korea piloted a kind of a nanny program, I think, where they're bringing in 100 nannies from Philippines, Filipino nannies,
Mhm.
to provide childcare and
Yes.
child services
Mhm.
in Korea.
Mm.
And I think this is primarily being done to try to address the declining birth rates,
Yes.
which
I
we won't
think.
go deep on the declining birth rate this episode,
Mhm.
but we definitely want to cue that up for a future one because it's, I think, a very deep and fascinating
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah. It's called the 외국인 가사도우미.
Mm.
The foreign house. How do you call it?
What?
Housekeeper.
Okay, housekeeper.
Yeah, it was all over the news. I think last year when
Mm.
when the government first announced the plan,
Hmm.
and now I think this August is when they actually started piloting the program.
Yeah, they actually arrived, 2 months ago, I
Mhm,
think. So,
mhm. Yeah. So what do you want to talk about this?
yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things. First, I thought a couple things were really kind of comical.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they were. I guess the fact that they're very specifically saying there are 100 in the
Mm-hmm.
pilot program
Yeah.
seemed a bit like that level of detail to me is not important. But
Mm.
it felt like every headline was like 100.
Mm.
Do you think it's really important for Koreans? Like, what are their fears here? Are they really afraid of, I guess, more foreigners coming into Korea? Is that a big part of this?
Because I think there were a lot of backlashes to begin with when they
Mhm.
first announced the plan.
Mm.
So I think the government's trying to be very careful
Hmm.
and sort of 눈치 봐
Yeah.
the public sentiment.
So we're really limiting it. We're being very clear on how many are coming in,
Yes.
providing extra detail.
Hmm.
What is the general backlash? Because this can only seem like a good thing to me. So what is the backlash from a Korean's perspective?
I think the biggest backlash came from the wage.
Okay.
The fact that they might be receiving lower than minimum wage, I
I
think
see.
that was the biggest backlash.
Mhm.
But I don't know how much of this is true,
Mm.
but through my light research,
Yeah.
I learned that these nannies, the 100 nannies themselves,
Mhm.
are getting over or at least the minimum wage.
Mhm.
But
Do
the
you have that? What is minimum wage in Korea?
in 2024, it is 9,860won,
Mhm.
which is what, like $8 per hour,
Okay. Okay. Mhm.
$7 to $8 per hour.
Yeah.
And then the government's plan for next year, 2025, is the first time it goes over 10,000won, which is
Oh,
pretty
that's a
symbolic.
big. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1030won.
Mm.
Mm.
Cool. And these nannies are currently getting paid at least that, if not more.
9,860won,
Okay.
if yeah, as far as I believe. And I think who were in the danger of getting lower than minimum wage
Mhm.
was because I think the initial government plan was not to only source the Filipino nannies, but also letting the 유학생s
Yeah.
who are in Korea work as with their visas, work as the nannies too,
Oh, interesting.
and
Okay.
their spouses. And those people were in danger
Yeah.
of getting lower than minimum wage.
Uh-huh.
And that was, I think, the one of the biggest criticisms towards the plan.
Oh,
But I
so
don't know if they revised it
yeah.
over the year, but that was the initial criticism. Yeah.
Oh, so actually Koreans were afraid of kind of exploiting cheap labor, like this whole situation being exploitative, and
I,
actually kind of a humanitarian lens to it.
as far as I know, yeah.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I can't think of any other
Yeah.
points of criticism towards Filipino nannies because there are already a lot of foreign workforce that you can see everywhere in
Yeah.
like restaurants or construction sites or
Mhm.
whatnot.
Mhm.
So I don't think the incoming of foreign labor itself was so much of a big deal.
Yeah. So there's no camp that actually is very much in favor or pushing to pay lower than minimum wage, or is that the major sticking point? Like, how much should we be paying these foreign nannies?
I think I don't know exactly, but I think the public sentiment might be split
Uh
on
huh.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say, June, this feels okay. I mean, let's start off first. Do you think this will actually could have any material impact on the declining birth rate in Korea?
I think if for it to be a big help
Mm-hmm.
in whatever helping people raise their kids,
Mm-hmm.
I think to be honest, that has to be way lower than minimum wage.
Exactly. It has
Yeah.
to be cheap. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Mhm.
if they're paying minimum wage, then I don't think it's gonna help that much.
Yeah, that's what I feel too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, of course,
So it's tricky.
as we've mentioned,
Yeah.
yeah, it's tricky because I think cheaper, if you pay them lower than minimum wage, that's of
Mhm.
course beneficial to
Mm,
Koreans,
mm,
right?
mm,
At the same time, it does feel kind of wrong, like a
mm.
bit icky, right? You're bringing in this workforce, almost paying them lower than minimum wage, like you're second class citizens in this country.
But to defend the other side, it is win-win
Yeah, yeah.
because they say that Filipino nannies, if they work in Philippines, they would get like 40만 won
Yeah, yeah.
per month, and and in Korea, if they work, they're getting almost like 6 times more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to agree with that, right?
Mhm.
If they're coming on their own volition,
Yeah.
and then they're making significantly more than they would in their home country,
Mm-hmm.
how can that be exploitative,
Yeah.
right? I think from an expat lens, June,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware, there are several countries in Asia that have a reputation for being very nice destinations
Mm.
because of the very cheap, let's say, nanny cost.
Yeah.
Basically, the countries that come to mind: Hong Kong, Singapore,
Singapore.
Taiwan.
Yeah.
You know,
Taiwan too.
yeah, Taiwan as well.
Mm-mm.
I think a lot of people say like, oh, you can get 2 or 3 full-time helpers
Mm.
for the cost of one nanny in
Yeah.
America.
Yeah.
And 2 or 3 full-time helpers, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Even for 1 or 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, in a sense, Korea not having that,
Mm-hmm.
it does put it at somewhat of a disadvantage
Mm.
as being a destination for expats to think about, oh, like, where should we move?
Mm.
Where can, we get a lot of help for our kids? So maybe one or both of the parents can work full-time, very demanding jobs, right? So,
I think Korea has, for a very long time, maintained a very homogenous society without seeing a lot of foreign workforces in their everyday lives. I heard that if you go outside of Seoul, it's more common now because like, agriculture and like construction and all that is happening more outside of Seoul.
Yeah.
So that you see a lot of foreign workers there. But it is still a very foreign concept to Koreans. And even myself, when I went to Singapore, I think, was it this year? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it to you, at least personally, that it was a very eerie scene that I see
Yeah, you
in,
told
in
me.
Singapore, like all these like light skinned people enjoying their lives. And I see like all these darker skinned people like from other countries in Southeast Asia or South Asia, like India or Bangladesh or whatnot. They were all in these, we call it 3D. Is this Konglish?
What's 3D?
3D work, like dangerous, sturdy, and difficult.
Never heard that before.
Yeah. In Korea, there's a word called 3D work.
Sorry, dirty, dangerous, or difficult.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like in construction sites or like waiters or waitressing or
Yeah.
like convenience stores are all like darker skinned people.
Mm-hmm.
And and this very weird moment where I went to, I forgot the name, but there's like this shopping district
Yeah.
in Singapore where it's like this entire block consists of luxury department stores.
Uh-huh.
And most of the time, the layout of the department stores is that they have like this plaza area in front of the entrance,
Yeah.
and it's filled with these dark-skinned nannies.
Uh-huh.
And my friend told me it's because in the weekends, it is illegal for them to
Yes.
work. So what they do is that they don't go into department stores, but
Yeah.
they gather in these plazas,
Yeah.
and they have like these picnic blankets all over, and they're just hanging out. And I thought it was like very odd scenery.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I can imagine that.
yeah.
From my perspective, if you're allowed to, I have to say, Jim, when I talk about this, it does feel icky, right? Because it's like, people from the wealthy West are coming somewhere where they can hire cheaper labor, cheaper nannies. But the fact is, it is a practical matter. When people are considering, where should we move? This really does play a role.
Yeah.
Coming to places where you can afford 2 or 3 full-time helpers to help raise your kids and just, take care of the house, etc. It is a huge draw for expats.
Yeah.
And so in a sense, if you think about at a country level, yeah, maybe it doesn't feel great allowing these nannies to be paid lower than minimum wage. Again, they're coming of their own volition. It's not exploitative, in my opinion. And it can also be a boon to attract maybe more wealthier expats who are going to pay higher taxes to Korea. It seems like it does make sense.
Yeah.
I can definitely understand why you would want to be able to pay them and lower the minimum wage.
I think if you do very delicate visa control, like for certain visas, you can only work as a nanny, and in that case, you could get paid lower than minimum wage. But in other cases, you don't. Maybe that's the way to do it.
I
I'm
see.
pretty sure that's how Singapore does it, right? But anyways, I feel like it could help the cost of living a lot.
Yeah.
Because throughout the past decade, minimum wage has drastically increased, and it did affect greatly the cost of living.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous right now, especially living in like a place like Pangyo.
Yeah. Wait, what is ridiculous specifically?
Like the cost
living?
of things.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yesterday, you know how Five Guys opened?
Yes, yeah. I already went once. Sorry, I already went twice.
Oh, you did?
No, once? I went once, yeah.
I went there with my friend,
Yeah.
and we ordered 2 burgers, one milkshake,
Yeah.
and a large fry. You know how much that cost?
5만 won, right?
Yeah, 54,000원.
Yeah. $50.
Which is crazy.
crazy.
I know that Five Guys is on the higher end of the prices.
Even in
but
America,
still.
it's a meme to make fun of how much Five Guys cost. Yeah.
Anyways, I think if we could, smartly utilize foreign workforce, I mean, it would help greatly to sort of stabilize the rising cost of living.
So in your opinion, though, none of the backlash against this was about allowing non-Koreans to come in.
I don't know that part because
Yeah.
I'm not the direct user of the service, if
Okay.
I will.
Yeah.
I don't know the concerns of, parents hiring foreign nannies. I know that there is a premium for Korean nannies.
Yeah.
because there have been certain instances where foreign nannies took off with their kids or something.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it was a lot,
Yeah.
like once or twice,
Sure.
but it, you know how like it could affect,
Sensationalized media. Yeah, I get it.
So yeah.
I think another fear I have is
Mhm.
that maybe these workers could be, kind of either abused or exploited,
Mm.
forced to work extra hours without getting paid, etc. So
Mhm.
that's one thing that comes to mind. Anytime there's kind of this power differential,
Mm.
there's a risk for abuse and things like that.
Mm.
So I think if this program is going to be rolled out at scale,
Yeah.
we should be extra vigilant about protecting their rights and making
Yeah.
sure they know, yeah, they have protection and things like that.
I think that's a good point. Yeah.
The other angle here is, Korea is the most expensive country to raise kids,
Mm.
according to the one survey we had cited before.
Mhm.
A lot of that is the cost of extra hagwons,
Yeah.
especially 영어 유치원 or, English daycare and things like that.
Mhm.
All the Filipino nannies, they're pretty proficient in English.
Mm.
So that could be an extra benefit as well,
mhm.
even over Korean nannies in Korea.
Mhm.
But Jun, yeah, I wanted to close this. The latest headline in this topic is after Chuseok,
Mhm.
apparently 2 of the 100 nannies
Yeah.
are unaccounted for.
Yeah, I saw it on the
They're
news.
AWOL.
Yeah.
First of all, when I read this, I was like, how can this be news? But yeah, why do you think this is a headline and a big talking point about the pilot program?
I think it's because there were a lot of criticisms towards this program to begin with.
Mhm.
And so a lot of eyes are on what's going to happen. And if 2 are missing out of 100, I think it's a pretty significant percentage.
2 months into it, yeah.
2% have their lost.
Yeah.
We still don't know where they are, right?
As far as I know, yeah. But in my mind, I'm like, I don't know, they're sick. Like
Mm.
everyone's assuming they are, use this as a loophole to get into Korea. Maybe they're gonna try to find some other work.
Yeah.
But are they really gonna find another job that pays them more? I don't know. That the whole thing feels a little bit like, let's just give them time. I don't know. Two missing after Chuseok seems reasonable to me, is my perspective. But
I think it's especially gaining more traction because there has been instances before, especially in the, do you know what it is? Like international marriage.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's another axis of like this foreign
I see.
thing where people, especially living in the rural areas, they can't find, like men especially can't find a spouse.
Yeah.
So there are like agencies that would source people from especially Southeast Asia
Mm-hmm.
or like Eastern Europe to come into Korea to
Yeah.
marry these people.
Mm-hmm.
And there has been, I think, significant instances where they would just flee.
After coming in.
Yeah.
Mm. That makes sense. Yeah, that back context I think is really important because to our earlier point too, I've also read headlines about some of those foreign brides coming in and being abused, exploited because they don't have the same rights. And there's, again, a power differential. Like they're so dependent on their spouse in Korea.
Yeah.
So I think all those, are probably playing a factor here. Yeah, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, my TLDR for this headline is I don't think this is going to do much to address the declining birth rate, but I do think this could do something to attract more expats and make Korea a more appealing destination, I think, for foreigners. Yeah.
I mean, I hope that this is effective in the long run, but I do also agree that this is just sort of like a show that the government's playing
To do something.
to say like
to
we're
address
we're
the
doing everything that we can, kind of. Yeah. But we will at some point cover the declining birth rate issue in some other episode.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, let's tackle that more in depth at a future time.
Mhm.
Okay, the next headline I want to talk about. This one was huge and is huge. I'm afraid we're not fully equipped to talk about it, being 2 men, but I do think we should address it because it's been such big news here. And that is the deep fake porn, I believe.
Yeah.
And again, maybe you can talk more in detail, but my understanding of this is there are these Telegram, which I think is a messaging service, chat rooms with, I think, hundreds of people. And I think you can either post a picture and then someone else will then take that picture and, basically deep fake porn with that face on it and then share it back.
Yeah.
And I think that's my understanding of what's happening here. Is that right? And is there more to this?
I think that's right,
Okay.
but I think it was more surprising because it was very systematically organized
Hmm.
in terms of different universities or different organizations.
Ah.
Yeah, so they were like, as far as I understand, if you go into, they're like in Telegram, I think you can make like hierarchical groups within a
Oh, I
certain
see. I
channel.
see. Okay.
So if you go into this deepfake channel, you would see a lot of different chat rooms organized by different universities.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the most famous one.
Okay.
So it was found out that if you go into the channel, you see like all these very renowned, elite universities
Oh, I
starting
see. I
starting
see.
from like, Seoul
Yeah,
National
yeah,
all the
yeah.
way. And that was, I think, another aspect that the public got so mad at.
Like it's preying on the elite class almost, like the best universities.
They're also into like these like nasty, you know, things.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, I see, I see. So it's like, oh, even our nation's best and brightest
Hmm.
at our elite universities,
Yeah.
they're the ones doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
And it was even more, yeah, I think it was even more highlighted in the news because there was a very similar instance
Mm-hmm.
a couple years ago, namely like the Nbonbang incident,
Mm-hmm.
where they also used Telegram to, I don't know exactly what happened in Nbonbang,
Mm-hmm.
but they were
Something
like,
similar.
yeah,
Yeah.
systematically organized Telegram channels for people to, share and generate illegal pornographic content, if you will.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so I think, okay, that's one where, sorry, there's one more detail I wanted to get clarification on.
Mm-hmm.
I also think I read a lot, it was like underage people as well.
Yes.
So, okay, so they're under, what's the legal age of consent in Korea? Is it 19?
1920-ish,
All
I
right, so
think.
they're
Yeah.
under 19 and they're
Yeah.
involved in this, and that's another angle here as well.
Yes.
Okay. I think the first thing I wanted to bring up though is this actually illegal? So does Korea have laws against this? I was doing some research. In America, there's no formal federal law against deepfake porn or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Some states in the past year, I
Mhm.
think, have been starting to pass some of these laws.
Yeah.
But there's no formal laws, again, in America that make this illegal.
Mm.
So do you know the situation in Korea?
I think they're on it right now
Okay.
after this
So
incident.
they're trying to create
But
the
it is
laws.
very difficult to catch up with these technologies right now.
It is,
Because
I
like
agree,
every
yeah.
day it's a new technology,
I
especially
agree, yeah.
with AI and all. Yeah. Deepfake is like kind of scarily amazing.
It's very scary.
Yeah.
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 So I agree, like, government should be on this and should have been on this.
Yeah.
But I agree it's hard. It's happening and changing so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to bring up kind of some of the history here around like is it molcam? Is it hidden cameras? I don't know the Korean word exactly, but
Molka.
molka. Okay,
Or is it Molcam? I think it's Molka.
molka.
Yeah.
Ka for camera, but what's mol for?
Molle.
Oh,
Like
molle.
in secret.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so hidden cameras.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of history around that, like in public restrooms and
Mhm.
areas like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can definitely understand this. It seems to be a history of kind of, I don't even know, is it sexual violence against women is one way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's where it gets, again, a little dicey
Mm.
because, again, there's no physical interaction, right? It's all digital.
Yeah.
Of course, there's extreme psychological damage to this, but I think that's why it may be tricky to pass legislation and also enforce, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually even know what's the controversy here.
I think one of the important angles in viewing this incident, especially from the Korean public, is the gender divide again.
Yeah.
Because like, oh, it's like all the men doing these nasty things,
Mhm.
blah blah blah, and then like the men also want. There has been backlash from the men as well, because like in certain media they were depicting as like most men do this
Oh, I see.
in Korea,
Yeah.
but it's actually not.
Mhm.
And there were like false news claiming that the people who are in these Telegram chat rooms were over like 200K,
200,000. Okay.
200,000, which was
That was fake,
incorrect.
false, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, that kind of like gender divide issue also played into this role.
Mhm.
But yeah, and like the elite university issue and then like technology being, in the forefront of these illegal activities.
Yeah,
So it's like a mix of all these together.
I see.
Yeah.
But is it safe to say public sentiment in general is like obviously condemning this? This is awful.
Yeah, of
Let's
course.
pass laws to prevent this,
Mhm.
and then kind of try to go after the people involved. Although if it's not illegal, how can you go after them? But anyway,
Yeah.
but you're saying some of the backlash has been now all men in Korea are being bundled in with these, where it's really just like a smaller group, being the bad actors.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And also the Telegram is very hard to track because end-to-end encryption and
Exactly.
everything.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up. So again, I think this is a classic case, again, putting my tech hat on, of individual privacy versus government enforcement, right? And so when a chat thread is end-to-end encrypted, literally the government, law enforcement, no one can actually go in and see
Yeah.
the content of that chat.
Yeah.
Even the
if
company
they
that-
delete it from their device.
Exactly. Even
Yeah.
the company that's hosting it, they
Yeah.
have no access to be able to see what was sent, what's in there.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of the flip side of what you get with personal privacy and protection. I think everyone wants their private conversations to be hidden,
Yeah.
potentially from the government, law enforcement, etc. But in this case, when actually bad actions are happening, right? Similarly, the government can't do anything and law enforcement can't do anything because of this. So
Yeah.
I just think it's this classic trade-off where like what's right for you as an individual, there's cons to it. There's consequences of that,
Yeah.
which is when something's bad is happening, equally it's impossible to do anything. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I think
What's your take on this though? Not the incident itself, but
end-to-end encryption.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really hard. So I think, June, when I'll first share a similar anecdote. When I first came to Korea, there's CCTV everywhere,
Yeah.
right? You're being recorded at any given time by many cameras. And so at first that made me very uncomfortable. And I think when I told you, Korea feels like a surveillance state to me.
Yeah.
You said
compared to the US.
compared to the US,
Yeah.
yeah. I think you said like, oh wow, that's maybe hard for a Korean to hear because that's how Koreans maybe think about China, right? Like the
Yeah.
government's watching you, they can figure out anything about you at any given time. But I think I quickly got used to it from the perspective of I saw so many benefits of it, right? Because Korea is an incredibly safe society. And in a sense it's like, well, what do you have to hide? Why does it make you uncomfortable if there's cameras recording you at any given time if you're not doing anything illegal, right? So I would say before I was very much in favor of the kind of personal rights and protections. Like I shouldn't be recorded, my messages are all encrypted, no one can access them without my consent, etc. But I'd say I've become more neutral, and I can see the benefits of having kind of surveillance state, if you will. So yeah, I think I'm more in the middle now than I was when I first moved here. And yeah.
I think that's exactly aligned with the Korean public sentiment that there are so much more benefits in having these surveillance systems compared to how your privacy is invaded. And my personal view, I might be an outlier, but you know how I am. Like maybe this is a very non-individualistic view, is that for instance, for services like digital services like Google or Instagram, I always check like take all my data.
Yeah.
Because I want the
experience.
the fruits of the experience that I can
yeah,
get by
yeah.
providing my personal information.
Yeah.
And I also think that I'm not that important. Like who's gonna go into the surveillance camera to see what I do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Unless I'm doing something illegal,
Yeah.
right? So I'm the type of person who I think there's much more benefits to installing these systems than the cons. But I don't know.
Yeah, okay. One more thing, Jun, I wanted to bring up here. It's very common etiquette, like online, internet, social media etiquette in Korea. When you post a picture of, let's say, your kid and their friends next to them, you put an emoji or you blur out their friends' faces.
In Korea.
Yeah, in Korea. So this is a very common etiquette. And I see it being adopted more and more in America, but it's still not the common thing to do in America. And so there's this, I don't know legally what is or isn't allowed.
Which is very interesting because it's completely the opposite
What is?
in that sense.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Individual, like Koreans are so mindful and conscious of other people's privacy, whereas Americans are not, right? Like we'll just post whatever,
Yeah.
willy-nilly, clear faces of, all these people I don't even know. They're not my kids, right?
Mhm.
But do you know what the laws are in Korea? Because I think there are some laws around being able to record someone and post that online.
I only know the law for recording,
Uh-huh.
녹취,
Yeah.
and it is illegal if you use it as like a surveillance thing, meaning that if you're not included in the conversation, then it's illegal.
But if you are included, you can.
Yeah.
I was
So-
just.
that's why I think recording calls is so important in Korea.
Yeah.
And like as far as I know, the Samsung phones by default they record every call that you receive and send out.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, they do.
I feel violated.
And I think
What?
so. As far as I know,
Yeah.
there are two major reasons
Uh-huh.
why Galaxy users
Yeah.
won't switch to iPhones.
Mm.
Number one is the Samsung Pay,
Uh-huh.
and number two is the recording of the
That
calls.
feature.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're saying Koreans really, really love the fact that all of their phone calls are recorded by default.
Especially who take a lot of calls for their businesses. Yeah.
Oh. Huh. Sorry, what's the reasoning here? It's like to prove something.
Yeah, it's sort of like your black box in your car,
Oh,
but in an audio
wow.
version.
I didn't
Yeah.
think about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah, that's fascinating, and it makes me rethink everything. Like, again, as an American, when I call you,
Mhm.
I don't want my call and voice recorded. Or I guess maybe it's an expectation thing, because if I know that it's happening,
Mhm.
maybe it's okay.
Yeah.
And by default, that's always happening. So maybe that's how Koreans are okay with it.
Mhm.
But it's more the feeling of I didn't know I was being recorded.
Mhm.
And,
But if
that feels like a violation of my personal rights.
But if the other person knows that it's being recorded, then
Mhm.
I think it's little use.
Your typical scene in like an American like drama
Mhm.
when it's a reporter or journalist, like they're sitting down for an interview,
Yeah.
and they always ask, "Do I have your consent to record this? Is it okay to record this?"
Mm.
You're saying in Korea you don't have to do that; you can just record anything if you're involved.
I think reporters do that because they're going to put it on the media,
Uh-huh.
and therefore you need consent.
If you're going to use
But
their
the
name
act
or
of recording
likeness.
itself is not illegal.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I don't know the laws in America, but I will say it makes me very uncomfortable to know that my voice is being recorded every time I call someone.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, let's see. This whole situation, deepfake. I do think a big part of this is the patriarchal society
Mm.
and the gender divide here, which I don't feel fully equipped to talk about.
Mm.
The parts that were surprising to me were I didn't realize it was kind of, the elite, exclusive, let's say, highest tier of society participating in this.
Mm.
That part was new to me. Yeah. Anyway.
Can I throw out a pretty controversial opinion?
Okay.
I think a lot of this I don't want to say a lot of this. Certain aspects of these incidents has to do with the fact that the government is officially blocking porn in Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you block something and don't institutionalize it,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's something so integrated to a human instinct,
Mm-hmm.
there is gonna be certain backlashes, or like there is gonna be certain underground culture that's gonna evolve out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like, at least on the surface,
Mhm.
Korea is a very sexually repressed
Yeah.
society.
Mhm.
And, maybe that does play a role in these really horrible, things that people do
Mhm.
to maybe satisfy that.
Mm.
I don't know. It's hard to say. There's deviance like in every society,
Yeah.
right? And it's hard for me to know where Korea is on that scale globally.
Mm.
At least for me, reading the news casually, it does feel like these things happen more in Korea, or maybe it just makes the news more because overall Korea is such a repressed sexually repressed society. So it's really hard for me to say. Yeah.
The reason that I brought this up is because you found the roots of it somehow in the patriarchal society,
Yeah.
but I do also think that porn is a very male-dominant industry in
Oh,
general.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why.
Okay, the third headline I wanted to cover. This one's been going on for a while too. So as we said earlier, this has been in the news for pretty much this whole year, I feel like. But we haven't touched it yet on this pod. It's the doctor strike.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. This is a big deal. It's been a big deal. I don't know the latest. I just know there's always something around it. I have
Mhm.
no idea the state of it or
Mm.
yeah. But let's talk about the doctor strike.
Mm.
My understanding at a high level, uh, there was a shortage in doctors in this country. Long queues, long wait times for meeting with the specialists, etc.
Mhm.
And so the government proposed this plan very
Mm.
sensibly.
Mm.
Let's increase the quota of doctors.
Mm.
I forget the exact numbers. Maybe you know them. Is it from like 2,000 to 3,000?
Something like that.
But
Yeah.
I believe it was let's increase the amount of doctors admitted to medical school every year by 50%.
Mhm.
So something like go from 2,000 a year to 3,000 a year.
Mm.
And there was a huge backlash from the doctors
Mhm.
to the point where they went on strike and
Mhm.
said, well, we're just not going to serve.
Mhm.
I don't even know how that works. Are they
Mhm.
getting paid? Can they be fired, etc.? But yeah, this is where my understanding ends. So the public sentiment is, of course, we want more doctors. And the doctors are like, no, that's not fair to us.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe you could take it from there and talk more about this.
So there might be a lot of different angles coming from this, especially, the doctors and the public and the government. I think everyone has a different point of view in this incident. I'll start with depicting one scenery.
Okay.
So whenever I go to my hometown Daegu, I go from a train station called Suseok, which is in the southeast area of Seoul. That's where I can take the rapid train to Daegu. And whenever I go there, one of the fascinating and strange scenery there is that there's a shuttle bus going from Suseok to Seoul Samsung-병원, which
Okay.
is one of the major general hospitals in Seoul. So there's a shuttle bus rotating to and from the hospital to the train station.
Okay.
This means the reason is because this rapid train service called SRT, I heard one of the major reasons that people take this line is because the people living outside of Seoul has to take the train to go to the Samsung-병원, the Samsung hospital.
Yeah.
That just shows how there is a lack of medical supply in areas outside of Seoul.
Yeah.
So it's very Seoul-centric, as it is with many other things, but like access to hospitals is like almost like a human necessity,
Yeah.
which is a big deal. And one of the reasons that these things are happening is because like many different reasons. Of course, number one, the basis is everything is Seoul-centric.
Yeah.
But also number two is that there's just a sheer lack of volume of doctors.
Yeah.
And that is something that the government has been trying to address and tackle for over 20 years, as far as I know. Yeah.
So this is like an ongoing social concern that Koreans have. There are not enough doctors, and there are not enough doctors outside of Seoul.
Yeah. So one thing I want to highlight, I don't want to pick a side, but to start with trying to understand the government point of view
Yeah.
is that they have given the doctors over 20 years to solve this issue.
Yeah.
And they just didn't talk about this or act on it at all.
I see.
So it's almost like it's a hard deadline now that something has to be forced
Yeah.
because they weren't being cooperative.
Ooh, see that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Because some of the earliest headlines from this where the doctor's pushback was, oh wow, the Korean government enacted this without our input at all. Like they didn't talk to us, etc. But you're saying actually it's been an ongoing known social issue and the Korean Doctors Association or whatever hasn't done anything anyway. And so the government was kind of like, hey, time's up, we're going to force this issue. I see.
Yeah. And
Wait, sorry, June, before you move on. Are you saying there's no reputable, really high quality hospital in Busan, as far as you know? Or is it just known to be that the best are all in Seoul?
so that's a very good question. Yes and no. I think, of course, the best hospitals are in the Seoul metropolitan area, yes. But I also do think that there are pretty good hospitals in Busan as well. So there are multiple factors.
Yeah.
Number one, Busan is also a very big city too.
Yeah, it's the second biggest city in Korea. It's
but there are
huge.
also people who are not living nor in Seoul or Busan too.
Okay. But
Yeah.
obviously, I'm specifically thinking about, you said everyone's, like the SRT is shuttling people from all over Korea to Seoul.
Yeah.
But at least half the country is closer to Busan, right?
Okay.
The southern.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't they go there?
Yeah.
And maybe they are too. We don't know.
They
but-
do too, yeah.
Okay.
Number two, I think there's a tendency of Korean people that even with like the slightest injury or disease, they want to go to the best doctor.
I see. Yeah.
And that's a unique aspect of this playing out as well.
Yeah.
So there are multiple factors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing I wasn't thinking of bringing up.
And
But
it's also because the medical insurance, like national medical
so
insurance
good.
system is so good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the typical meme is like in Korea, people go to the doctor or the clinic way too much. Like they almost take advantage of the fact that it's free and cheap. Whereas in America, you know, it's not ideal either. But you got to be pretty close to, you got to be really, really hurting or injured to make it worthwhile
Yeah.
to go into the doctor, right? Like we've touched on this before. My typical Google search is, when should I go to the doctor, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to extend that or delay that if possible. Whereas in Korea, people's first inclination is, let me go see a doctor.
But to defend the Korean people, I think if in the US then the insurance system was as good as in Korea, I think a lot of people would have done that too.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Probably.
So I think it's
Like,
just
why not?
Yeah, like just go to the best doctor.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah, you were bringing up something.
so I think from as early as the 2000s,
Yeah.
the government has been trying to meet with the Doctors Association, trying to negotiate to increase the number of licensures.
Yeah.
Because the government had this coming. They knew that this was going to happen
Yeah.
anyways if they project the numbers. But as far as I know, the Doctors Association wouldn't even meet the government
Oh, wow.
if
Okay.
that was in the agenda.
I see.
So I think that is why the public sentiment is not for the doctors that much.
Yeah, these details make me much. I was not already sympathetic, June, to the doctors, but this makes me feel even less sympathetic towards them. Yeah.
And there's another factor in this thing is that why the reason it's behind the reason of like why the doctors didn't want to increase the licensures, and it goes with
Show me the money.
yeah the income that they make.
Yeah.
And this is the number one major reason why the public is not for them.
Yeah.
Is because in Korea, doctors are making disproportionate amount of income compared to your normal worker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying doctors by far make the most money in Korea?
Yeah.
And that's probably why everyone wants to grow up to be a doctor.
Yes.
Which is like this self-perpetuating loop. I see.
And if you compare it to the work that some of the this is very controversial because in Korea,
Yeah.
like cosmetic surgery and cosmetical treatment
Yeah. Makes
is
the
such
most
a
money.
big industry.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't involve surgical procedures like just like the skin treatment and whatnot, the unique aspect of this in Korea as well is that, as far as I know, in the US, even if you're not a doctor and if you're just a nurse,
Yeah.
you can do that procedure.
I see.
But in Korea, it's only the doctors who can do that procedure.
And is that also controlled by the doctor's board?
Maybe it could be.
I see.
That part I don't know.
Got it.
But if you see what they do,
Yeah.
you can obviously see it's not a thing that only doctors could do.
Yeah, sure.
Because they just
Yeah.
hold on to a device and they
Yeah,
just
yeah.
scan your whatever.
So maybe they're also artificially controlling who can do these procedures,
Yeah.
right? In order to, again, make more money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
There's a word in Korea that refers to these types of doctors
Yeah.
who are not what's the word of, like, even if you're not a specialized doctor,
Yeah.
you call it general practitioner, right?
Yeah,
GP.
yeah.
We call it 미용 GP, like cosmetic GP. That they are licensed doctors,
Yeah.
but they're not specialized.
Yeah.
But they just do that, and they make like tons and tons of money.
Yeah, I've heard this
Yeah.
is an issue.
Yeah.
So again, not only are there lack of supply of doctors, the doctors that are in Korea,
Yeah.
they're all gravitating towards cosmetic surgeries and
Yeah.
cosmetic operations because
Yeah.
they make the most money that
Yeah,
way.
yeah. And so there are a lot of public criticism towards that. Why are they making so much money just
Yeah.
because they have a doctor's license?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that part I think is the part where the public thinks it's not fair. And that's a major part that the public thinks that the current strike doesn't have a lot of justice behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been affected by this or know anyone affected by this?
I know some friends who are affected by this. They're just like not working.
Oh, on the doctor side.
Yeah, yeah.
They're really just not working.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Are they still getting paid?
No,
Oh, wow.
but they like secretly are doing like albas
On
and
the
stuff.
side.
Yeah,
Moonlighting.
yeah.
How about, I was actually going for the other side. So as a patient,
Mm-hmm.
do you know someone who hasn't been able to see a doctor for some really important, you know, life-threatening illness or situation, and they can't because the doctors are striking?
Not personally,
Yeah.
but I did see that a lot of that in the news.
We were affected by this minorly.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. We wanted to see a doctor, and I think my wife called, and they were like, "It's gonna be months," and we're like, "Well, okay." And it wasn't life-threatening for sure, but we'd like to see a doctor, and we simply can't. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we love to have a doctor on board to talk about the
That would be
doctor's point of
great.
view.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, the public view is that they don't have a lot of justice to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, June, some of the earliest positions from the doctor's position was, okay, you can't just increase the doctor pool by 50% without also properly taking care of or thinking through, okay, training, etc. Because we don't want to release all these bad doctors, untrained doctors. That would be even worse, right? That's one perspective. And
But that is not justified because they have been trying to do that from 20 years ago, right?
agreed.
The
Yeah.
government's initial plan was not to do this abruptly.
do it
They wanted to
gradually.
gradually, but they wouldn't even, meet the government if they had this on the agenda.
Yeah, I think again, based on my light research in the U.S., the government's always at least talking with the medical associations on like, okay, what is the supply of doctors across all these specialists? How are we
Yeah.
going to handle the need in the coming years? And it's just a good faith negotiation. Yeah, but yeah, it seems
So
like
I think the
in
government-
Korea, the doctors association was having no good faith negotiation.
Yeah. So I think the government already knows that it is a very forced plan, but also the government's opinion is that like what else can we do?
Yeah,
Right. We
we
have
tried.
to force it at some point. Yeah.
Okay. What?
So the blacklist comes
Yeah, what's the
from
blacklist?
so certain doctors didn't think that this is right.
Ah,
And they didn't consent with the strike, and they just kept on working.
Yeah.
But there has been so the Doctors Association made a blacklist of these people to disadvantage them.
In
And
the
it got,
future.
I don't know how, but
I see.
anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Oh, that's
dishonor
sad.
them
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so what's the, I guess, I mean, that's just going to turn public sentiment even more against the doctors, right? Like
exactly.
they're
Yeah.
being petty and going against the doctors
Yeah.
who are not abiding by the strike and actually still performing, I see. Yeah. I'll just say, when I was talking to my doctor friends in America about this, because even this news reached them,
Yeah.
they're very, what would I say? They're very supportive of the more public opinion and kind of don't sympathize at all with the doctors.
Yeah.
Because from their perspective, again, yes, you get into, being a doctor might lead to a, financially comfortable life for sure.
Yeah.
But that's not why they get into being a doctor. They really genuinely want to help people. And just striking and not doing your job, it's almost like firefighters or policemen just stopping their work, right? It's like, no, you're almost a public servant at that point. And yes, you're already making a lot of money. So how can you be complaining about this,
Yeah.
right? And I think maybe one difference too in America, being a doctor is so hard.
Yeah.
It is so much schooling. You have mountains of debt. And you don't really start making significant money until you're like mid-30s. And I don't know if Korea that feels late, but in America that feels late. And you're earning basically next to nothing for so long. It's so much work. Your whole 20s and your life is gone. But you do it because you genuinely want to help people and become a doctor for that reason. Whereas again, my casual observer in Korea is like, people just want to be doctors to make the most money.
But I also want to point out that I know for a fact that doctors in America make even more money.
For the specialists, yes. Like
Yeah.
your GPs or whatever, they're making good money, but not crazy money. If you're like a cardiologist, or if you get to the really, really specialized care, you're making crazy money. But that's the elite of the elite. I think your average typical doctor in America, it's not making like that much money, I think.
I see. Anyways, I also want to add on to the fact that I feel like one of the reasons why the public is so against the doctors also is because the personal experiences that they have with doctors. And I stand by this too.
Yeah.
Every time I go to a doctor,
Oh, they're so full of themselves.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
so arrogant.
Yeah, they
To
really
the
are.
point every time I go to a doctor, I feel like I'm paying the money and
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm being treated this way.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think there's like this very like strong sense of elitism
yeah.
with the doctors.
Yep.
And it's so funny because one of the, I guess, public announcements coming from the medical associations towards the government,
Yeah.
they use words like kamhi, like how dare you.
Wow, yeah. So even it comes across, it's like systemic in the profession here.
Yeah.
They're all full of themselves, elitist. They
I don't
think
want to
they're
say
better than
all,
everyone else.
but yeah.
But it's ingrained in the culture.
I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I just have to bring up this one thing, which is there's no such thing in Korea, I think, as far as bedside manner is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that in the US, doctors are trained. You have to have good bedside manner.
Yeah.
Be nice to your patients, like treat them well with
Yeah.
respect, right? If you even dare to ask a question to a doctor in Korea,
Yeah.
they will look at you like, who are you to question me?
Exactly.
Get out. I need to talk to the next patient.
Yeah.
And they'll say it's from the perspective of like, no, we're just trying to see as many patients as possible. But I think there also is something there where you can do it in a respectful, polite manner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Full
And
of themselves.
especially it's because there's such a striking difference between all the other services that you get in Korea, because they're so kind to you, and like once
Yeah.
you go to the doctor, it's like, why am I being treated this way?
Yeah.
But I also want to caveat this by, I know that there are a lot of good doctors out there as well.
Of course. I
Very
know many good
kind
doctors in Korea
doctors,
too.
yeah. So
and kind doctors.
I don't want to put a blanket over everyone.
And
but
I can
yeah.
empathize, right? Like, okay, well, we just said I did 6 years of med school and all these like postdocs and residencies and everything. You just Google search something and you think you know more than me, right?
yeah,
So I can also understand that perspective. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
but where are we at this point? And is there a resolution in sight? Like, do you see this coming to an end sometime soon?
I don't know. I think someone has to back out, but also it's tricky for the government because the public sentiment is so against the doctors.
I don't think the government should back out. Yeah, I think the doctors.
So it's also related to the approval rate.
Approval rate. Yeah.
Approval rate. If the government backs out from this, there is gonna be a huge backlash. Yeah.
As far as I can tell from the headlines, the current president in Korea, their approval rate is horrible. All-time lows, right? Like 20% approval rate.
I think so.
June, is the doctor strike, is this a partisan issue? Or is this like a conservative versus liberal thing? Or is everyone agreed that this needs to be fixed and we should have more doctors?
I think it's more of the latter.
Okay.
Which is very rare in
Yeah,
Korea.
yeah. Well, it makes me feel hopeful that the doctors have to give in eventually.
Yeah.
Okay. June, I think the final headline, a bit more lighthearted because the other three have been kind of heavy and dark. Did you see the headline around Korean Air stopping service for Shinramyeon?
Yes, I have. But
What did you feel when you read that?
I personally never have ramyuns.
What?
Yeah.
I was devastated when I read it. Yeah.
Really?
I get a namyeon every single time.
Because I feel so stuffed anyways. Like not moving, sitting in my chair for like 12 hours.
Yeah.
And they serve, number one, they serve meals regardless of the time zone.
Yes.
So most of the time you get like very close to meals because you had a meal
Before the flight. Yeah.
So I feel super stuffed and uncomfortable anyway, so
Yeah.
I don't get the ramyun. And I think the delicacy part is when you're flying business or above, when they serve the ramyun in the ceramic bowl. But I think the news is talking about when you have the cup ramyun.
Yeah, just the instant shinramyeon, like the cup ramyeon. Yeah.
You want to have another ramyun after all those meals and the snacks in between?
Let's talk about the meals. I think Korean Americans kind of fantasize and put on a pedestal the food that you get on Korean Airlines. So Korean Air and Asiana both. And now there's the new one. What's the new one called?
There are a lot. Wait,
Like Korean Airlines.
there are only two.
There's one new one that's offering. What's it called?
Oh, Air Premia.
Air Premia. Yeah.
But there's like
That's more budget though, I think, right?
they're positioning themselves in between budget and then
I see, I see, I
I don't
see.
know what the actual thing is called. Yeah.
Anyway, do you remember our friend of the pod, AM?
Mm-hmm.
He called Korean Air a matjip.
Yeah.
And matjip means like I think the rules are it has to be very famous and the food
Mhm.
has to be delicious.
Mm.
So calling the airline food a matjip, it was kind of tongue in cheek,
Mm.
but it was hilarious when I heard that.
But you can legitimately might call them a matjip because there's like this award that airlines are
Oh.
given for their food.
Yeah.
And I think Korean Air was famous for having
Won
like
that.
consecutive
Mhm.
awards.
I do have to say I look forward to the meals.
Yeah.
It's kind of a novelty,
Mm-hmm.
right? To just imagine like, oh, you can get instant ramen on your flight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're flying across the US, like the food and the snacks are so generic and
Yeah.
like, you know, you're not going to get something like that.
Yeah.
So it's one, a novelty.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, I think the other thing is very famous. It's the, when you get bibimbap,
Mm-hmm.
the gochujang comes in a toothpaste container.
Yeah.
At least that's what Americans would call it.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is like, it's just such a novelty. I don't know. It's kind of cool and fun.
Such an innovation, right?
When you see that though, or does that do anything for you? It's like, oh, gochujang in a toothpaste container.
I rarely get that in the
What?
flight. Sorry.
Oh, for you, it's like, why would I get bad bibimbap? I would rather get something else.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I see.
I would
Because
try something else.
good bibimbap is so accessible for you as a
Because I
Korean.
know exactly what a bibimbap would taste like.
Yeah.
But whatever they have with the like their beef or
Sure.
noodles or whatever,
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
That's so interesting. We probably order completely different things.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, so I think like getting rid of Shinramyeon on the surface,
Mm-hmm.
it was because in response to I think there was a lot of turbulence,
Mm-hmm.
which again I think is a consequence of climate change. There's more and more turbulence on flights.
Oh, really? I didn't know climate change has to do
Yeah,
with this.
I believe so. But they were
Interesting.
like, oh, it's too much of a risk factor to serve Shinramyeon.
Mm-hmm.
But that can't be true. They're still serving coffee and all these other hot things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Do you have any inclination about why they would ban this? Like, I can't imagine it's a cost thing either. Like, the Shinramyeon's so cheap.
I think it's related to the 귀찮아ness. Because
I could see that.
everyone's
I could see
asking
that.
for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And some people might complain because most of the time you're getting the 컵라면s is out of the meal time.
Yeah.
So it smells a lot,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
so
yeah.
there might have been people who are complaining, so you have to, address that. And it's also 귀찮아. I don't know, maybe that.
I could see that. I don't know if this is going to get me in trouble, but have you noticed a change in Korean airline, not specifically Korean Air, but Korean Airlines overall service in the last few years?
Has declined.
That's my opinion, but I'm wondering if you've noticed something similar.
I think so too.
Okay.
Especially for the food.
Yeah.
They used to give out a lot of like good quality food.
Yeah.
Not only for the main meals, but like
Mhm.
in between.
Mhm.
They would give out like samgakkimbap. They would give out fruit.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, and their pizza. They have like this boxed pizza thing.
Who's they?
Korean Air.
I've never wanted to, nor had a pizza on a Korean Air flight.
It comes in this like rectangular box,
okay.
and it's like one of the best.
no.
It's not a legit pizza. It's
Uh-huh.
more of a pizza bang.
Okay.
Like
so just
the-
like bread with pizza toppings on top?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's so good.
I'm skeptical. Is it sweet?
I don't know. In my Korean taste bud, it just tastes so good.
So good?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never wanted to, nor even gotten, definitely on a flight.
Hmm.
But even though when I go to like Paris Spaghetti or whatever, I see those pizza bongs.
Yeah.
I'm never tempted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I think Korean airline services in general the service quality is still better than like the Western ones.
I'd agree with that.
I've
Yeah.
heard that like Singapore Airlines is the best or something.
Mm.
I've never flew Singapore Airlines,
Mm.
but just comparing to like the American Airlines versus the Korean ones,
Yeah.
I think their service quality is still better, a
Mm.
lot better. But yeah, I do feel that their service quality has declined over the years.
So I agree with you. I
Yeah.
think the Korean airlines are better than your typical Western whatever
Mhm.
airlines that I've flown my whole life.
Hmm.
But relative, maybe just because I'm here flying the Korean airlines more,
Hmm.
I do feel like the overall service quality is kind of going down.
Mm.
Stewardesses are a little less friendly,
Hmm.
a little less willing to help out,
Yeah.
a little more curt with their statements, right? And the food, again, is just a little like, I feel like I'm bothering them every time I ask for something.
Mm. Maybe
And-
it's a Gen Z thing.
Maybe, I don't know. Anyway.
Mm.
Okay, so no more shinramen on your flights, which is very sad for me. Yeah.
I think they say that it's taking effect on from August. So it already happened.
Mm. Ah, too bad. Okay. Yeah. Well, June, I think that's some of the headlines from the past couple months in Korea.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think a couple of these have been ongoing, but it's
Mhm.
good to finally get a chance to actually talk about them and
Mhm.
yeah, understand the nuances a bit more deeply.
Yes.
Okay, Patreon.
If you have any other news topics that you like us to cover, yeah, please comment on our posts or DM us or email us.
There was a bunch of hype, adore, Min Hee Jin,
Ugh, I'm
New
like so
Jeans
sick of
related,
that.
but yeah, I don't think we want to continue
Yeah.
covering that.
I don't care about New Jeans anymore.
But again, June, this is another example for me,
Mhm.
which is like, yeah, the news in Korea always just feels a little bit repetitive.
It's a
I don't
small
know.
country compared to the US.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, June, before we close, again, if you would like to support us and you think this episode was worth at least 25 cents to you,
Mhm.
please consider supporting us on Patreon for the minimum tier of $1 a month. Since last recording, we have 2 new Patreons. Let's shout out.
Yay.
Number 1 is Siho
Thank you, Siho. Seho, I think.
Seho.
Yeah.
Is this your friend?
No. But I can recognize that's a Korean name.
Is it a Korean guy's name?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Seho.
Thank you, Seho.
And Brian. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Brian is a guy's name. Do you? Your typical Korean would not struggle with name to gender in English, right?
In English?
Because they're fluent enough in English to understand names, at least.
Oh, but certain names that are not too typical, I think Korean people might not know.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So what's a typical gender neutral, well, like a Alex, right?
Alex, Max.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Mic check.
You have a sweat stain.
Ah, here?
Yeah. You can't see it?
Is that obvious?
In the camera it is.
Whatever.
Not in real life though. It's interesting.
Is it really obvious still?
Yeah, don't 신경 써.
Is it obvious?
Kind of. But not now. You're
'Cause I hit
covering it
it.
well, but I don't want you to be like
It's
this.
okay. I don't care. Okay.
I honestly don't care but I'm only telling you because I felt like you care.
It was so obvious though.
Doesn't
I
matter.
care. Already?
Yeah, the minimum wage in Korea is in 2014 right now. It's 9,800.
2024.
Did I say 2014? Oh my god.
몰래, like I don't know. 몰라?
No,
No.
it's different.
Okay.
Certain aspects of this incident, or like these types of incidents, incidences,
Yeah.
is that the plural of incident? Incidences?
Incidents.
Incidents